Hi everyone, it's the Rangers Review. It's Wednesday, the 27th of August, Champions League playoff day. Not a sentence that held that much anticipation last week, Chris, but we will see how much we can build up with you in Belgium ahead of tonight. Rangers, of course, facing Club Brugge this evening. A small matter of an old firm on Sunday and the transfer window closing on Monday. So busy days. Chris, you were out there for us. You were at the press conference last night. Trip going well. Looks like you've had going on WhatsApp. You've had a few samples of the local cuisine, that being Belgium lager.
Well, you have to go and explore when you're in these places. There's no point in just parking yourself in a hotel room. So it was a busy day yesterday. Also, on with Derek yesterday morning, up to the stadium for the Bruges presser, and then back down, do a bit of work, and then back up again. And the Rangers presser turned into a very interesting one. After Russell Martin speaking extensively about the Hamza Igamane situation. And then, as people will know by now, as they would have seen, we brought the story to you at 6:30 last night, that Igamane will no longer be a Rangers player sooner rather than later, and that the deal with Leo has been agreed. So I say we had that story last night, which kept the phone and kept the Twitter notifications busy for a wee bit, and then met up with the rest of the boys, watched the end of the Celtic game, which was interesting as well, and I went and saw a bit more of the town. So a bit of work to do today. Hopefully try and go for a wander and see Bruges in the daylight, and then it's obviously game time later on. I actually thought it was a 8 o'clock kickoff, and of course it is, but not here. It's not. It's a 9 o'clock kickoff here, so that's added an extra hour on. You know that these 9 o'clock kickoffs, the days can drag in when you've got that later on. So we'll find a way to pass the afternoon, and looking forward to this game tonight. I know it's not one that's people have got huge expectations for, but as Russell Martin said yesterday, it's a shot to nothing almost. So let's see how Rangers go.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see how they go. Andrew says, work hard, play hard, Chris. So permission from one of our YouTube members. A reminder as well that this video is, of course, brought to you by Willows Fencing, Glasgow's reliable fencing company, 20 plus years experience, family run business. If you're looking for work done, you can use the code Rangers Review 10 and get some money off. All the relevant links are in the description. And of course, please subscribe on YouTube if you've not done so already. Right, Chris, let's get into Igamane first then, because as you say, we had that story last night, soon after Russell Martin spoke at the press conference, where he said that Hamza Igamane would not be a Rangers player soon. He'd not been in the building since the events of Sunday, where he didn't come off the bench away in Paisley. Just bring us up to speed with what developed yesterday. We'll have a bit of a wider conversation as well about how we've got to this point in the summer. And crucially, which is what people want to know and what is most important now for Rangers, what comes next?
As people would have seen on the video, myself and Derek were on last night. I think this is a good bit of business for Rangers. Ultimately, they had a player that didn't want to be here anymore. So people will say the fee should have been higher. We'll say he's worth more. You're only worth what someone is willing to pay for you, and the situation with Igamane had deteriorated over the course of the summer. Rangers bargaining position became weaker and weaker as time went on. We had the story last week about Leo's initial approach, but also just having a bit of a flyer at it. And when it gets to the stage of he's refusing to come on against St Mirren, it was obvious what was going to unfold. It was obvious what the next step was going to be. I thought it was interesting last night. Russell Martin asked about Igamane's scan that he went for, and he just said, "I expect him to pass a medical," which really tells you all you need to know about events and Paisley at the weekend. So ultimately, Rangers had a player that didn't want to be there. They had to move him on, and they now have to, as always, the most important part in any transfer window, they have to use the money wisely, because that's been a big problem for them over years. They have not spent their budget properly. They've got a bit of money in now. on the back of this one, and also the Jeffrey deal that we reported on the week before last. So there's money there to be spent. Money has been spent already. We expect it to be a busy couple of days because this squad is still short, and clearly it's now short at number 9, and could become even shorter at number 9 depending how the Cyril Dessers situation unfolds as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that I think if we go all the way back to June when we reported on initial news, Chris, of contact between the players' camp and the Lille club. Now, people will say that's tapping up. Why is that allowed? Technically, it is, but every club basically does it, which is why no club reports it, is my understanding on it. But if we go all the way back to then, the expectation, and I think we wrote it at the time, was that Hamza Igamane would leave the club this summer. That's now materialised. Rangers have to move on and look elsewhere to strengthen up top. As we reported on Saturday, we understand Bojan Miovski to be at the very top of that list, and initial talks to have taken place regarding that deal. Obviously moved to Girona last summer, wasn't it? Former Aberdeen striker, 26 years old, knows the league very well, has a good record, I think, in big games in Scotland too, and we'll speak about Miovski a little bit later on. But before we do that, Chris, I want to talk about Igamane and Jefte because Igamane does not leave in brilliant circumstances. However, I thought, to be fair to Russell Martin, and we'll come on to this in a minute, he did cover quite well that this is just the modern transfer window where young players are being told by representatives that moves are going to happen, where naturally clubs, players look at certain clubs as stepping stones to get into a top 5 league. So I thought overall, to be fair, that was said in quite a measured way in the press conference. But when was the last time Rangers flipped 2 players over the course of 2 summers for that type of profit? And you can say, you can criticise Jefte, as a lot of people did, or criticise Igamane towards the end. If it was easy, Rangers would have been doing it routinely, and it opens up wider conversations about recruitment, stuff we'll delve into right throughout the season. But a comment here from one of our valued YouTube members, Blue Nose Sparky, great bit of business done by Niels Kopp and Jefte and Igamane, bringing in 14 million to the club. Sven, with a similar sentiment. I mean, just reflecting on that for a minute, Chris, Rangers have, I think, 8 of their 9 arrivals in this window, discluding Oscar Cortez, who we'll also discuss today, and Lyle Cameron. 8 of 9 have come from England. There's very good players in England. There's also questions about value for money, and we've seen a shift, as we reported at the start of the window, away from what Rangers were doing this time last year, which was looking to markets like the Brazilian market, the Moroccan market, and more to domestic markets. But it does deserve, I think, attention that Rangers have managed to recruit these players for a low fee and flip them on. And it probably begs the question of, should they still be doing it as well? Because as recent player trading or examples of the player trading model just not happening over recent years, it's easier to say it than to do it. And in this instance, Rangers have bought 2 players that they've been able to flip very quickly for good profits.
Is this the player trading model in action rather than just in words? We have waited a long time to see it. It's really good business from Rangers. Now, not every signing of last summer was a success. People will rightly point to Cortez and the fee and the impact. They will rightly point to Barrie and the fee and the impact. But not every deal is going to work out. If you're routinely in the habit of signing 10 players every summer, see if you can get 7 of them that are good, that you can say pass marks, value for money, contribute, could sell on. If you get 7 out of 10, I think you've done quite well. And if you then get guys like Jefte, like Igamane, who you've not had to put a lot of money into, you've not had to put a lot of time and effort into, 12 months in, out, profit in the bank. Some players will be here for 2 seasons, 3 seasons, and then go for big money. Some will be here for 2, 3 seasons and leave at the end of their contracts. Some, like these 2 guys, it will just be one-hit wonders almost. Come in, establish themselves, you take them into a different arena, obviously European football. You give them experience of playing at Ibrox, playing in Old Firm games, challenging for silverware if Rangers can ever be so lucky once again. And that then allows you to sell these players as improved products. You're not selling them as the finished articles, and I don't think anyone would say Igamane or Jefty are the finished articles. They've still both got a lot to learn, both still got a lot to do in the game, but that improvement and that long-term development was never going to come at Rangers. You're always looking at 2 seasons maximum out of both of them, and I think if you get the money at this stage and you can do it after 1 season, it makes a lot of sense. You then go and reinvest and you do it and you go and try and find other players of a similar profile. The English market point is a big one, because it has been a big change for Rangers this summer. I say Niels was asked to go into different markets last summer and has done it successfully in terms of these 2 players. Time will tell what the profit margin on some of the recruits this summer are. There's a lot of loan deals in there, so Rangers won't see any profit on them. You're looking at Gassama probably being the main one. Antman is still young and a good profile, so it's been it has been a different approach this summer. We'll see if it pays off in football and financial terms, but I think you have to say that what Rangers did last summer, certainly in terms of these 2 players, it's paid for itself already, and it has to go down as 2 big wins for Niels Copper and his recruitment team last summer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the recruitment in this summer, Chris, you can only in a way really judge it when we see the players over a period of time, when we see what the season plays out, like what type of money they move on in the future for. A lot more money has been spent this summer than was spent last summer, which again is important to take into consideration. But we'll come back to transfers, because there's a lot to discuss there, Chris, and a lot of work for Rangers to do before the deadline closes. I just want to take a little bit of a segue. You and Derek spoke about Russell Martin's press conference last night. You were obviously there. When asked about Igamane and pushed on that situation, he spoke about a similar situation he felt was happening at Rangers compared to Southampton. Now, people can judge that for themselves. I think there's some value to the point he's making, that so many players have their heads turned. It's an unsettled dressing room. You can't really fully focus. I want to get your thoughts on it, but first, let's play what Russell Martin had to say on that topic last night, speaking in Belgium.
The club, maybe we can sit down and be really honest about the first couple of months and what you have to deal with. But it's really difficult. It was the same at Southampton. So many players thought their future would lie elsewhere. Towards the end of the window, we had a really bad run of form because so many players were being told by their agents, by other clubs, that they'll get it done next week, next 2 weeks, next few days, wait till the end of the window, we'll get a favourable deal. And then we ended up with probably 15 players who thought they were still going to be leaving the club up until probably a week before, and then 4 or 5 who thought they were going to leave on transfer deadline day. So that team then went on to be 25 games unbeaten, because once the window shut, they realised, okay, now we're here, we can settle down and we can actually get to work. So it's not surprising me. It's not the player's fault. It's really not. It's really difficult for a young man that doesn't speak the language, just being told, don't worry, your future's going to be elsewhere, and then I'm asking him to be all in and do this, and this is what we need from you, and all that stuff. So difficult. So I don't take it personally. From Hamza, the group's been amazing.
What do you make of that, Chris? Because as you know, I don't think the atmosphere is great at the moment, is it? I think I'm speaking collectively there. I think Russell Martin's referenced that last night, speaking about the away end at St Mirren. Do you think that's a fair comment? I think the Southampton team had a bad month, and then from September on went 25 games unbeaten. We still expect there to be outgoings as well as incomings at Ibrox. Could that be playing a big part in what's happening at the moment from your vantage point?
I think he'll be pleased when the transfer window's shut. I think other people at the club will be glad when the transfer window's shut. I know we'll be glad when the transfer window is shut as well. No, it's I do understand where he's coming from and do have a bit of sympathy for him. I think the Igamane situation, it's not unique to Rangers. There will be players in so many dressing rooms across so many different teams across so many different leagues who do have their head turned. Russell spoke about it earlier on in the window. regarding Nico Raskin as well. If you are a player and there's a lot of noise around about you, a bit of social media chat, there's newspaper chat, there's website chat, but you've also got agents and other influences saying, just you hang on, we'll get you a move. There's going to be X number of percentage wage rises in it. There could be signing on fees. You go and start a new life in a new country, play in a new league, potentially win things. I think it's obvious that that's going to have an impact on players. I think it's easy to forget that these guys are human beings as well, and they've got their families to look forward to. They've got friendship groups. They've got all the off-field stuff that everyone else has got, but they're just doing it in a huge limelight. So I do have a bit of sympathy for them. It can't have been an easy few weeks to try and negotiate through. But ultimately, he spent a lot of money. He's got a squad of players that should be beating St Mirren, that should be beating Dundee, that should be beating Motherwell. So that criticism is fair. That anger is fair. So there's also two sides to it. But so I think he'll be pleased once these final deals are done. He's then got a squad. Once you then get to September, it's another. I'm not saying Russell Martin's using it as an excuse, but it's another thing off the table. You then can't say players are being they're being touted for this, or they've got people in their ear, or they're maybe thinking about their future elsewhere. Once you get to next Tuesday morning and you report for training once again, that's it. That's you, and it's then up to this group of players and this group of staff to go and try and make Rangers a success this season.
Yeah, mixed comments on that. Andrew saying every manager has to deal with that, Josh, on Chris, and he's absolutely spot on with that. Stephen saying it's a deflection because of the number of draws that included during Martin's time at Southampton. Christopher saying the players in the park need to take more responsibility. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. For me, Chris, there is value in that point, but there's also, it's like I'll compare it to something else. I think you've heard the sentence, and I'm paraphrasing quite a lot, of normally we'd only be 2 games in after 8 weeks. The difference is you're just not at Rangers, and you knew you weren't. So I don't think you can really, I think you've got to adapt to that. That's not something you can impact. That's just the way things are. I don't think that could be an excuse. However, what is worth considering is you look at how many managers have lost their jobs here. You look at the turnover of players. There's a consistent issue, and consistently a manager hasn't been able to sort it out short term, and that has ultimately led to Rangers making decision after decision that hasn't led them anywhere else. They do need more in the window, Chris. Do expect Rangers to still be pretty active in the next few days. So let's speak about that. I know you and Derek discussed the defensive situation yesterday. Our understanding is that there is loan interest too in Oscar Cortez from Portugal, but also Belgium. He's obviously out of the squad at the moment for the Champions League. He wasn't in the squad against St Mirren, so that's one that we'll keep an eye on and let you know about as and when we know of any developments there. Obviously, Cortez only came to the club on a permanent basis this summer. The other player that's hot on everyone's lips at the moment is Bojan Miovski. Again, we reported at the weekend that we understand them to be at the top of Rangers' options up top that they are considering as and when departures happen and now have happened. Yusuf Shermeti is another name, but my understanding on that one is that's perhaps more of an option to maybe beef up the striking positions as opposed to being necessarily the out-and-out first choice. Things can change. Things can change depending on whether Rangers can get a Miovski deal over the line. But talks, we understand, have taken place. I think that would be a bit of a no-brainer of a signing, Chris, personally. Still think Rangers would need more up top. And if Oscar Cortez is to go, then the wide positions are an area of the squad to watch, because when Rangers signed those 3 wingers last month, the tone I was kind of picking up was probably won't go back in for anyone else. There was discussions about potentially sending Finlay Curtis out on loan. Kilmarnock inquired about that, but he's, after Jeji Kasama, he's Rangers' top scorer at the moment. I don't think you can afford to send him out on loan. So again, I think maybe you're one attacker away from having real balance, especially out in that right wing against low blocks, maybe someone with a left foot. But Miovski for you, would that be a Would that be a no-brainer, do you think?
I think it's one that just makes perfect sense. Rangers haven't always operated with perfect sense over recent years, but I think that it's one you can look at, you can understand the interest, and you can say if Rangers can get that done, he would come in and he would be an improvement. He's already potentially, if he does sign and this one does get over the line, he's an improvement on Igamane because he wants to be here. And Rangers, as Russell Martin referenced there, he needs players that are all in. He needs players that are committed. And if Miovski signs, then that shows that he is. I know there'll still be conversations around about Dessers and Danilo, and the Rangers go in for another one. I'd be surprised if there's another one without another departure. I don't see them carrying 4 number 9s in the squad. So it would look like you would need a Dessers or Danny to move on for a Shamite or another to then come in. But if you're offering me Miovski as a replacement for Igamane, given the financials on both those deals as well, I think people will say that's a fairly good bit of business.
Yeah, some comments here on the striker Dams, again, valued YouTube member, says it doesn't matter what number 9 comes in, style of play needs to change for them to be able to score. Another comment here saying we could sign Erling Haaland and it wouldn't work in this system. My hot take, Chris, is that I don't really agree with that. And I wrote probably too many words on this on Saturday when I was following up on this news about Bojan Miovski, that I think we've not seen Martin have the options of like a fully fit strike force so far. But I think what he wants probably is 3 things. Is one, for them to be able to spin in behind or come short. So I think, for example, Dessers can spin behind, but he can't really link play. Danilo can link play, but I don't think he looks post-injury like he doesn't quite have that speed or burst of pace to go in behind. I think they need to be able to occupy defences too, which, again, Dessers can probably do that for me, but Danilo at the moment isn't. And I can't remember my third point, so I'm going to have to go and find it. But I think the number 9 can't. I think it does matter, and Danilo is still regaining sharpness. He scored 1 goal in 8. He's not had many opportunities, so I take the point that he probably couldn't have scored that much more. But I do think that the number 9 can help the team in open play a bit more than has been the case. Do you agree? I'll throw it back to you. I'll try and find my other point that I'd obviously prepared so carefully.
Yes, I think those options have just not been there consistently enough. There's been like a man in out situation. You've then had the Dessers injury. You've had Danilo, who has been the most reliable, if you like, in terms of actually being available, but hasn't really done enough in the games that he's played. You then had Tello Asgard being asked to play at number 9 against St Mirren at the weekend. I don't think we'll see that tonight. I think the way that the manager spoke about Dessers last night at the press conference, to me that would suggest that he's going to start, and I think that would be the right call. Dessers is the guy that you would put your faith in tonight. The Rangers in the final third, it's not worked. Oliver Antman spoke at the presser last night and was asked, why is it not quite clicking? And he hummed and hawed a wee bit about it, and basically said they're not quite sure. He boiled it down to they're not scoring enough goals and they concede too many soft goals. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. It may sound fairly simplistic, but that's where Rangers are. They're not good at one end and they're not very good at the other end right now. They have to sort obviously both those issues, but the middle to front, it's just not quite. It's not quite worked. I don't think they play quickly enough. I don't think the relationships and the combinations are there. But you've then had guys coming in and out, and it's not been conducive to hitting the ground running. And they've certainly not hit the ground running. I think if you can get a striker in that ticks those boxes, that is all the things that you're looking for in a number 9, and you've then got the wingers that you've signed at that stage, there's no excuses, and you have to make that. You have to then go and make that work. So I think we'll see Dessers tonight. who's going to play against Celtic depends who's still in the building, who's playing the first couple of games after the transfer window. Right now, we just don't know.
Yeah, my last point was aggressive off the ball, because I think that so far Rangers have been so easy to play through. So easy to play through. And I think that if you've got someone who's fast and athletic and can kind of set the tempo with the press, then makes it far more difficult for the opposition to play out. And we'll move on to tonight's game just now, Chris, because I realise we've hardly spoke about it. I've got what I think might be the team, or I'd like to see the team tonight, which we'll throw up in a second. For me, the big issue Rangers have tonight, and I know Martin's framed it as we get to chase the opposition now, unlike in recent games. I think Rangers would rather be going there with a lead than 3-1 down. I think that's a bit of a reframing, especially because they're the ones that are travelling away instead of taking the second leg back home like Pilsen could and like Panathinaikos could. Rangers' biggest issue so far, I think, has been how just the sheer number of chances they've conceded, whether it be Alloa, and I know they made 10 changes, but you're still playing against a League One side, whether it be St Mirren at the weekend, obviously the games in European competition too. I know Martin's added some context to some of those performances. What I'm asking you, Chris, is how good a performance do you need to get something tonight? Because not only have you got to go and win by a 2-goal margin, you've got to keep a clean sheet. And Rangers have only done that. Someone in the comments can tell me if I'm wrong. I think they've only done that against Pilsen at home. Is that right? So you've got to keep a clean sheet. You've got to outscore the opposition by 2 to 3 goals. Rangers maybe have a bit of an opportunity to shift the narrative over the next few days, because Celtic go out of the Champions League last night. There's clearly fragility for them at the moment, but Rangers just haven't been able to take advantage of that whenever that is emerged in recent years, Chris. I know they have this good old firm record as of late. There is an opportunity over the next few days if you can maybe get a performance against Bruges to lift morale. But based on what we've seen so far, going into probably the 2 most difficult games of Rangers' season, how optimistic do you have to be that that's going to happen?
Your glass has to be a lot more than half full, doesn't it? I just don't see it tonight. I don't see how Rangers, as you've outlined there, I don't see how they keep a clean sheet and win by the required number of goals, or lose a goal as you'd expect them to, and then still have enough at the other end to go and balance that out. If this was a side that was slightly ropey defensively, but was free flowing and was cutting teams open, creating barrel loads of chances, scoring goals, and you thought they'll win every game 4-3, fine. Yeah. But they look like conceding the 3 and never looked like scoring the 4. That's not a good situation to find yourself in. So I think when the manager spoke about that last night, and we are now the ones that get to go and do the chasing, it's a different situation and really looking forward to the challenge. He couldn't come in and sit in front of us last night and say, well, actually, boys, this is a bit of a waste of everybody's time, because we're not going to go through it. He has to find a way to get into the minds of his players to think this is still possible. But I don't think you'll get many Rangers fans that will say, yes, this is on tonight. This is a realistic chance for Rangers to qualify. I think his team selection is interesting, because if he has one eye on Sunday, do you pick a side with that in mind? Now, he said last night, not even thought about it. All the focus has been on this. Everybody knows what the more important game for Rangers is this week. So if you have someone that you definitely want to start on Sunday, do you not start them tonight, or maybe only give them half an hour or so tonight just to keep them ticking over? So I think the lineup tonight will tell a lot about Russell Martin's mentality heading into this one. If he really believes that Rangers can win both games, then you go really, really strong. See if you think this one is actually it's too long a shot. You still put out a strong side. Obviously, you're not going to go and make 10 changes and open yourself up to getting a bit of a doing. But it's obvious what the more important game is for Rangers this season. So I'm looking forward to seeing the team lines run about 6:30 or so, and then we'll see where the 90 minutes takes us.
Okay, this is what I am. This is what I'd like to see, but I'm working on the basis that Dessers won't start because he's been injured. So if Dessers is ready to start, Chris, I'd start him, but I think it's probably more likely that he comes on for the second half, because then again, how long's he been injured? 2 weeks. It's not been serious. Could he be thrown back in if he's trained? Maybe. Outside of that, for me, the change would be I'd probably bring James Tavernier back in because of his experience of nights like this, and because I don't think Max Aarons has been very good so far in that role. He's played a lot of football. He's played at left back. I'd put James Tavernier back in there. I'd definitely keep Nico Raskin at number 6, because for me, the only way Rangers aren't conceding that many opportunities is Raskin running everywhere to try and put out fires. So I'd put him in there. Tello Asgard's not started a game in his favourite position. Rangers need to attack, and put him at number 8. And Diomande, again, European experience. Expect him to come back in. Also because he's left-footed, and Rangers don't have many of them, and that's an important consideration, I think, in the team that we picked tonight. Anywhere you disagree with me apart from the obvious? If Dessers can come in for Danilo, Lyle Cameron, would be very harsh to drop him, but I think Diamande's experience might just be favoured on a European night. Chris, tell me what you think.
I would go Dessers for Danilo, and I don't think they're that far away with the rest of it. For me, Tav has to come in at right back because Aarons has not been at it. Raskin prefers that 6 role, and I think he's more effective than Joe Rothwell right now. Asgard, we need to get him as many games as possible to try and get him up to speed. Wide, I think people will make cases for Finlay Curtis to perhaps get a start. Obviously, made a real impact off the bench on Sunday. He could maybe be someone that isn't necessarily going to start against Celtic, so perhaps comes in tonight. Do you then give Antman or Gassama the night off? So I don't think you'll be that far away with that one. Now you could easily go and throw in Rothwell, throw in Cameron, throw in Mikey Moore, something like that. But I don't think you'll be a million miles away with that 11.
Yeah. No, we will see soon. Okay, Chris, we're going to leave it there. Loads of talking points. Thanks to everyone for joining in as ever. A reminder, if you are not subscribed on YouTube, then please do subscribe. We've got loads and loads of new content to bring you this season. We've got a podcast studio that we're building as well, which Chris is very excited about, aren't you, Chris? He hasn't stopped talking about it for the last month or so. But we're going to be making the Rangers Review bigger and better for you as we can. But if you subscribe, it really helps us. So please like the video if you did enjoy it. We will join you later on, pre and post match from Bruges. Stay up to date with all the latest throughout the transfer window across our socials as ever. And we'll speak to you later. Have a great day. Bye for now.